Please don't take my voice away from me. Don't do this, the mermaid cried. How it all started. Adaeze's life had always been hard. She was a struggling musician with nothing to show for her efforts. Every album she recorded ended up forgotten, playing only inside her tiny broken apartment. Her songs never reached the world outside those 4 cracked walls. She was very poor. During the day, Adaeze worked with her hands. In the evenings, she worked at a noisy clubhouse as a waitress and dishwasher. She carried heavy plates, washed greasy dishes, and served food she could never afford to eat. Her fingers were often sore, her nails cracked, and her back ached. Yet she refused to give up. Still, no matter how much she begged people to buy her CDs, no one cared. Some people even laughed at her, asking for free copies or special treatment before they would even listen. Girls her age mocked her. Look at her. She thinks she will become a celebrity one day. Adaeze pretended to smile, even though their words cut deep into her heart. Her home was a small face-me-I-face-you apartment with a leaking roof. When the rain fell, drops of water slipped through the holes, soaking her thin mattress. She had no husband, no children, and no family nearby. She lived all alone with silence as her only companion. On nights when she didn't get tips, Adaeze went to bed hungry. Sometimes she chewed on dry cassava just to trick her stomach into thinking it was full. Then she would curl up on her damp bed and whisper into the darkness, "If only I had something special. If only my voice could shine like the stars and make people listen. Then I would be rich. Then I would be respected." But all Adaeze had was dust, hunger, and disappointment. What made it worse was watching others succeed. While she struggled, people she once knew signed music deals, got endorsements, and climbed the ladder of fame. Adaeze stayed behind, left in the shadows. When Christmas came, she could no longer bear the suffering. She packed her old, worn-out box and took a bus back to her village, hoping to find peace for a while. She didn't know that this journey would change her life forever. The village moved at a slower rhythm than the city. In the morning, cocks crowed, goats bleated, and women swept their yards with long brooms. By afternoon, the sun beat down hot and heavy, and children played under mango trees, their laughter echoing across the red earth. Adaeze found some peace here, though her heart still carried the weight of failure. She often sat outside her grandmother's old hut, staring at the sky, wondering if her dreams would ever come true. Every evening she joined the women on the narrow path to the stream. The air was filled with the smell of wet earth and the sound of rushing water carried from far away. Fireflies glowed softly along the bushes, and the air grew cooler as night approached. The women sang folk songs as they went, their voices rising and falling in harmony. But Adaeze did not join them. She walked at the back of the line, lost in her own thoughts. That was when it happened. She heard it, soft at first, almost like the wind, then clearer, stronger, brighter than any song she had ever heard. A voice. It was so beautiful it made her knees weak. It was not just singing, it was like the river itself had grown a mouth and begun to sing. The sound wrapped around her heart and pulled her forward. Adaeze gasped. "What? What is that?" Her pot slipped from her head, tumbling onto the ground with a loud crack. Water spilled onto the red earth, soaking her bare feet. But Adaeze didn't care. She stood frozen, her mouth open, listening. The voice was like honey mixed with sunlight, soft yet powerful. It rose high like a bird in flight, then fell low like a mother's lullaby. The song was not in any language she knew, yet she understood it in her soul. Her heart began to beat faster, her eyes filled with tears. "This is the voice I have been dreaming of," she whispered. "If I had a voice like this, the whole world would listen. No one could ever laugh at me again." The women ahead of her did not seem to hear it. They kept walking, chatting, and balancing their heavy pots of water. Adaeze turned her head, wondering why no one else noticed. "Don't you hear it?" she called softly. But no one answered. It was as if the voice was meant for her alone. Adaeze could not resist. She left the path and walked toward the sound. The bushes scratched her legs, thorns pricked her skin, and branches pulled her hair. Still, she kept moving, her whole body drawn to that voice. The deeper she went, the louder the singing became. Her breath quickened. Her heart thumped in her chest. At one point, she tripped on a stone and almost fell, but she pushed herself up and hurried on. Finally, she reached a secret part of the stream where the water shimmered under the moonlight. It was so quiet that even the frogs and crickets seemed to hold their breath. And there, sitting on a smooth rock in the middle of the stream, was the most breathtaking creature Adaeze had ever seen. The woman's skin glowed like polished bronze under the moon. Her hair flowed down her back like black silk, shining as if woven from the night itself. Her eyes sparkled like deep pools, mysterious and endless. But Adaeze's eyes widened when she looked down. Instead of legs, the woman had a long, glimmering tail. Silver and green scales caught the moonlight, flashing like jewels. The tail swished gently in the water, sending ripples across the stream. Adaeze's mouth fell open. A mermaid?" she gasped, trembling. The mermaid kept singing for a few moments, her lips moving gracefully. Then she stopped, and silence fell. Slowly she turned her head and looked directly at Adaeze. Their eyes met. Adaeze froze, unable to move. Her heart beat so loudly she was sure the mermaid could hear it. The mermaid tilted her head slightly as if surprised that Adaeze had found her. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Only the gentle sound of the flowing water filled the air. Finally, Adaeze whispered, her voice shaking. Your voice. It's the most beautiful thing I've ever heard." The mermaid smiled faintly, but her eyes held a sadness that Adaeze could not understand. And in that silent meeting by the moonlit stream, Adaeze knew her life would never be the same again. Adaeze could not sleep that night. The memory of the mermaid's song stayed in her ears, ringing like silver bells. Even when she closed her eyes, she heard the melody drifting through her dreams. The next evening she returned to the stream. At first she was afraid the mermaid would be gone, but there she was again, sitting on the same rock, her tail swishing gently in the water. The mermaid didn't sing this time. She only watched Adaeze with curious eyes. "You came back," she said softly. "Yes," Adaeze answered, stepping closer. "I couldn't stay away." "Your voice, it's too beautiful." The mermaid tilted her head. Beautiful things can also be dangerous. But Adaeze only smiled. And so it began. Day after day, Adaeze visited the stream. She carried small gifts, beads she could not sell in the market, a shiny bracelet she once wore, even a broken comb. The mermaid accepted them with a smile, though she clearly had no need for such things. They talked for hours. Adaeze shared stories of the city, bright lights, music halls, and her endless struggles. The mermaid listened quietly, her eyes full of pity. Sometimes she laughed at Adaeze's jokes, other times she sang short songs that made Adaeze's skin tingle. The two became friends. Adaeze looked forward to their meetings more than anything else. For the first time in her life, she felt special, chosen. But each night when she returned home, Adaeze's mind filled with restless thoughts. If I had her voice, just once, if that power belonged to me, I would never be poor again. Still, she hid her desire carefully. She smiled at the mermaid, laughed with her, even pretended to be content. The mermaid trusted her more each day. Then, one evening, the mermaid sighed and lifted a glowing golden shell into the moonlight. "This is my secret," she whispered. "The shell holds my voice. Without it, I cannot return to my home under the sea. But I show it to you because I trust you, Adaeze." Adaeze's breath caught in her throat. The shell shimmered with power. It was the answer to all her prayers. But instead of reaching for it, she only smiled sweetly and said, "It's beautiful." Inside, though, her heart beat wildly. For now she would wait, she would play the good friend, and when the moment was right, she would take what she wanted. That moment came on a night when the moon was full and the stream shimmered like silver glass. The air was cool, the forest quiet, as if the whole world was holding its breath. Adaeze arrived at the stream carrying a small basket of beads. "I brought something for you," she said with a smile. The mermaid's eyes lit up. She touched the beads gently, her fingers brushing against Adaeze's hand. "You are kind," she said softly. "Not many humans show kindness to my kind." Adaeze lowered her gaze, hiding the guilt that pricked at her chest. "That's because they don't understand you. But I do." The mermaid smiled warmly, her eyes soft with trust. Slowly, she lifted her hand and in her palm rested the golden shell, glowing gently under the moonlight. Its light shimmered across the water and reflected in her eyes as she spoke in a tender voice. "Would you like to hold it for a moment, Adaeze?" she asked. "If you press it close to your heart, my voice will flow into you. I do not share this secret with anyone, but I trust you. You are my friend." Adaeze's breath caught. Her heart pounded like a drum. She had waited for this moment. "Would you really do that? You will let me hold it?" she asked. Her voice was sweet, careful, but inside, greed clawed at her. The mermaid paused, as though a quiet voice within was warning her to be careful. For a heartbeat, her eyes clouded with doubt, but then she gave a slow, trusting nod and gently placed the glowing shell into Adaeze's trembling hands. The instant it touched her skin, warmth spread through Adaeze's body. She felt light, strong, powerful, like she was born for greatness. The shell hummed in her palms, as if it recognized her hunger. For a moment, Adaeze almost returned it. She looked at the mermaid's trusting face, her soft smile, her kind eyes. But then she remembered the mocking laughter of city girls, the empty plates, the cracked roof, the nights of hunger. Her jaw tightened. "No," she whispered to herself, "this is mine." Before the mermaid could react, Adaeze clutched the shell tightly to her chest and stepped back. The mermaid gasped, her smile vanishing. "Adaeze, what are you doing? Please give it back." But Adaeze shook her head, tears blurring her vision. "I'm sorry, but I need this more than you." The mermaid stretched out her hands, her eyes wide with fear. She tried to sing, but her voice cracked and broke into silence. She clutched her throat, her lips trembling. "No, please don't take my voice away. Without it, I can't go home." Her words echoed through the night, full of pain. But Adaeze turned away. The shell glowed brighter in her arms, feeding her hunger for success. With every step she took, the mermaid's voice grew weaker until only a broken whisper remained. And at last, the stream was silent. Adaeze walked into the darkness, carrying her stolen prize, while behind her the mermaid's tears rippled across the water. The betrayal was done. The sun had barely risen when Adaeze slipped out of the village. She moved quickly, her old box tied with rope, the golden shell hidden deep inside her bag. Her hands shook as she clutched it close. She didn't greet her neighbors. She didn't look back at her grandmother's hut. She didn't even stop to rest. The mermaid's broken cries still echoed in her mind. "Please don't take my voice away. Without it, I can't go home." Adaeze pressed her hands over her ears, but the memory refused to leave. It was as though the sound had carved itself into her heart. When the rickety bus finally rolled out of the dusty village road, Adaeze sighed with relief. The farther she went, the lighter she felt. The trees thinned out, the houses changed, and soon the noisy city lights welcomed her back. That night, in the privacy of her small, cracked-walled room, she dared to test the shell. She held it against her chest and whispered, "Let me sing." At once, a sound poured out of her mouth, clear, rich, and powerful. It was not her old, rough voice. It was magic. Every note carried like a bird flying through the sky. She gasped and clutched her throat. "This can't be me," she sang again, louder. The sound filled the room, bounced off the walls and wrapped around her like a royal cloak. Tears streamed down her face. "It's mine," she whispered. "At last, it's mine." The next evening, Adaeze went back to the small clubhouse where she once washed dishes and cleared tables. She asked the manager shyly if she could sing just one song before the band began. The manager laughed. "You? Adaeze? The same girl who begged us to sell her CDs? No one wants to hear you." But Adaeze begged until he rolled his eyes. "Fine. One song. Don't waste my time." She stepped onto the little wooden stage, her palms sweaty, her knees trembling. The crowd barely looked up from their drinks. Some whispered and laughed. But then she opened her mouth. The first note silenced the room. Cups froze mid-air. Men stopped talking. Women stared wide-eyed. Her voice flowed like water, rose like a bird, shone like the stars. By the time she finished, the room erupted in thunderous applause. "Sing again!" someone shouted. "Yes, please, one more!" cried another. The manager stared at her with his mouth wide open. Where did that come from?" Adaeze only smiled and touched the shell hidden in her pocket. Word spread quickly. People told stories of a girl with a voice so enchanting it could make stones weep. Soon, other club owners invited her. Crowds filled small halls eager to hear her. Music producers came with contracts. Radio stations played her songs on repeat. Newspapers printed her face. Adaeze was no longer the poor girl with cracked nails and a leaking roof. She now wore sparkling gowns and stood under golden lights. The same girls who once mocked her now whispered from the shadows. "Look at her. She thinks she's untouchable, but this time, Adaeze truly was." She sang in big halls, her name painted on banners, her voice echoing across cities. Fans screamed her name. Children tried to copy her songs. Everywhere she went, people stopped to stare. Adaeze smiled, raising her chin high. "At last," she thought, "I am respected. I am somebody." It was all worth it. But late at night, when she was alone, she sometimes heard it. Faint, broken, almost like a dream. "Please don't take my voice away. Without it, I can't go home." She pressed her pillow over her ears, trying to block it out. "It's nothing," she told herself, "just my imagination." But the shell in her drawer glowed faintly, as if reminding her that stolen gifts never come free. The shell's glow filled Adaeze's room that night. She rolled over, covering her head with the pillow, but still she could feel its light pressing through the darkness. In her dreams, she heard the mermaid's voice again, weak, broken, echoing in her ears. "Please, give me back what you took. Without my voice, I cannot go home." Adaeze jolted awake, drenched in sweat. She pressed her palms over her ears, but the whisper lingered. Fame had come, yes, but peace was gone. Every night became the same. The shell glowed, the whispers grew louder. Even when she tried to sing, she sometimes heard another voice, sad and hollow, twisting beneath her songs. Her fans only heard beauty, but Adaeze heard torment. It started small, a patch of scales on her wrist, an itching that burned. Adaeze scratched until her skin stung, then hid the mark beneath long gloves. The next week, more scales appeared at her neck. She covered them with heavy makeup and high collars. Photographers called it her new style. Adaeze forced a smile, but inside, shame ate her alive. One night, unable to bear it, Adaeze slipped quietly into a church. She knelt at the altar, tears streaming down her face. "God, please," she whispered, her hands trembling. "Don't let me lose everything now. Don't take this away from me." The pastor approached, laid his hand on her head, then suddenly pulled back with a gasp. His eyes were wide. "My daughter," he said slowly, "you are carrying something that does not belong to you. Return it, before it destroys you." Adaeze froze. Her heart thudded painfully in her chest. But then she shook her head, stood, and ran out into the night. The more she sang, the more her fame spread, but the more she shone on stage, the darker her nights became. She stopped looking into mirrors. She could no longer stand the sight of her reflection, her eyes too sharp, her skin slowly hardening beneath the makeup. Her fans adored her. The world cheered her name, but Adaeze knew the truth. She was losing herself piece by piece. That night, Adaeze could bear it no longer. The whispers had turned into screams pounding in her head. Her skin burned as scales crept higher and higher, shining faintly under the dim light of her mansion. Her reflection in the mirror no longer looked like her. It looked like something else, something she could not accept. "No," she cried, stumbling backward. "I won't let this be the end. I can fix it. I must fix it." Her trembling hands grabbed the golden shell from the drawer. It pulsed hot against her skin, almost burning, but she clutched it tightly. She pulled on a cloak to hide her body, rushed to her car, and drove into the night. The city lights faded behind her. Skyscrapers and billboards with her own face flashed by, mocking her. Everywhere she looked, it was still her, the star, the idol, the voice of the nation. But inside her car, a daze was breaking. The road stretched long and dark, twisting through forests and lonely fields. The rain fell hard, drumming on the windshield. The wipers beat back and forth, but she could barely see. Her body shook, her teeth chattered, and still she whispered to herself like a prayer, "If I return it, it will stop. If I return it, everything will go back to normal." At last, she reached her village. The streets were empty, the houses asleep, but the path to the river called to her like a shadow. She stumbled down the muddy trail, the shell glowing in her hands, guiding her way. The river shimmered in the moonlight, silent and wide, and there, on a rock at the water's edge, sat the mermaid. Her hair was tangled and wet, her face pale with sorrow. She looked broken, like a soul that had waited too long for something she feared would never return. Adaeze fell to her knees at the riverbank, her voice shaking. "Here!" she cried, holding out the shell with trembling hands. "Take it back! Take your voice back! I can't live like this anymore." The mermaid's eyes widened. Slowly she reached out. The moment her fingers touched the shell, it glowed brighter, wrapping her in warmth. Her lips parted, and a soft, beautiful hum rose into the night air. The voice that had been stolen was hers again. Adaeze had returned the shell to the mermaid's trembling hands. And for one fragile moment, she believed it was over, that everything would return to normal. Her body straightened, her skin was smooth again, and the terrible scales vanished from her flesh. She leaned over the water and saw her reflection. Human once more. A shaky laugh burst from her lips, yet no sound followed. Her voice was gone. Panic rushed through her. She clutched her throat, opened her mouth, and tried again, but only silence answered. The mermaid's sorrowful eyes held her. "You took what was never yours," she whispered. "Though you returned it, the sea does not let go so easily. Your punishment is not death, Adaeze. It is emptiness." Shaken, Adaeze stumbled from the river. The night air pressed heavy on her chest. She tried to hum, to sing, even to whisper her own name, but the world heard nothing. Her lips moved, her chest quivered, but silence clung to her like a curse. When she reached her grand mansion in the city, it no longer felt like home. The gates loomed strange, the walls unwelcome. She collapsed inside, surrounded by trophies, glittering gowns and photographs of her smiling face. But the moment she looked at them, her heart twisted with confusion. They felt like relics of someone else's life. Her memory was slipping away. At interviews, she sat silent, unable to explain herself. At concerts, her lips moved, but no song came. Audiences left in restless murmurs. Sponsors vanished, contracts dissolved. Bit by bit, her empire crumbled, and Adaeze could do nothing but watch. And still, every evening, an unseen hand pulled her back to the river. Barefoot and silent, she wandered down the dusty path, her once glorious gowns dragging in the dirt. Villagers watched her pacing the riverbank, touching her throat, mouthing words she could not recall. It was as if she searched for something the sea had taken from her forever. The years were merciless. Her mansion was sold, her clothes were auctioned. Her name faded from the billboards. She became poorer than she had ever been, drifting through the world like a shadow. She never spoke again. Sometimes she smiled faintly at strangers, but her eyes were far away, lost in a place no one else could reach. And then, one day, she was gone. Some whispered she walked into the river and never returned. Others swore they saw her vanish into the forest, chasing a sound only she could hear. But her songs remained. They played on radios, in markets, in homes, her voice echoing in places she could no longer reach. The world remembered her music, even as she herself was erased. And so, the elders told the tale. A girl once stole a mermaid's voice. For a while she soared higher than the stars. But in the end, she lost not her life, but her voice, her memory, and her place in the world. Fame without peace, they warned, is no blessing, it is a curse. And some say that if you pass the river at night, you may see her. A lonely woman standing by the water's edge, touching her throat, her lips moving as though singing. But no sound ever comes, only silence. Moral of the story: greed and impatience can blind us to the truth. Adaeze wanted fame so badly that she took what was not hers. But stolen gifts never last, and the price is always greater than the gain. True success comes through patience, hard work, and contentment, not through shortcuts or betrayal.